everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Today we're going to be going through my February wrap up. So I ended up reading a total of 8 books in February, which I am super happy with. I'm definitely getting my reading mojo back, and February for me was the month of script. So I recently, just at the end of January, bought my new Kindle. It is the Kindle Fire and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I've been reading on this left, right and centre, and because you can get Scribd on here, I've been making use of all of the amazing ebooks that they have to offer on there. So the majority of my reading for February was either by ebook or audiobook, which I'm super happy with. I'm glad that I'm trying out different formats instead of always just my usual physical books, especially because I am trying to downscale the amount of books I own, the amount of books on my physical TBR, and try to ban myself from buying too many books. I'm not going to say I'm on a book buying ban because we all know I'll buy books, but I just want to keep it more minimal and try to read things in ebook or audiobook format if it's available before purchasing it. If it's a book I really love, I probably will buy the paper copy as well because I do really like to collect the books that I love. But hopefully that'll mean I'll keep my spending down a little. I have got quite a range of ratings this month, but I do have 2 5-star reads which I'm really excited to talk about. So I think without further ado, we should just get into it. Before I do that, however, I am going to take my little Magic Mind matcha shot. I spoke about these in my last video and I've been absolutely loving them. I have since then actually stopped drinking any form of caffeine completely, and when I tell you, it has done wonders for me. Like, I don't know if I'm just really sensitive to caffeine, but when I have caffeine in the morning, like I usually do have a morning coffee, I do really enjoy a morning coffee, but when it comes to like 3 o'clock, I always without fail have such a horrific crash. By 3 o'clock I'm struggling to stay productive at work, and then once I finish work all I want to do is go for a nap. However, after being off of caffeine for like a week and a half now, I want to say, I have noticed such a difference. I am no longer getting that crash in the afternoon, which is amazing. I'm trying to have like a decaf coffee in the morning just because I like the taste and I enjoy having like my little morning ritual. And then afternoon time, I will take one of these just to like give me a little boost for the rest of the day, keep me productive, keep my brain in gear. And honestly, it has been doing wonders for my mental health and probably for my work performance as well. I will once again have a link in the description for you to go and check out Magic Mind yourself and use the code INDIAR20 for up to 56% off your first subscription. So the first book I read in March was The Mistake by Elle Kennedy. This is the second book in the Off-Campus series and I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, but I raced through the first one, The Deal, absolutely adored it, loved the storyline, and for me the mistake just didn't quite match up to the first one. For anyone who doesn't know, the off-campus books follow a group of boys who are housemates at college. They're all on the hockey team together. It is of course hockey romance, and at the beginning they are all like players, not really interested in relationships, but they all meet that one girl who changes everything for them. They fall first and they fall hard, and we love to see it. In this one we follow John Logan, who I did love, and he's on his way to a house party I believe, and he shows up at what he thinks is the correct door at the dorms. However, who opens the door but Grace, who is a young and fun freshman, and they end up having this like cute wee night together, watching a film together, and of course things start to progress from there. But then when John Logan makes a very bad mistake, things end suddenly before they can really start, and when he realises his mistake and tries to go grovelling back to Grace, she decides to set him a whole list of ridiculous, impossible tasks to complete in order to prove that he is really serious about her. And it is so much fun. I love that idea of this like list of tasks he had to complete. It was hilarious to read about. I really love Elle Kennedy's writing style. It just flows so easily and I race through her books. The one thing that knocked this down for me was that a couple of the decisions that Grace made, particularly towards the end of the book, and a couple of the ways that she responded to things that John Logan had said or done really irked me, and I really didn't agree with how she handled some situations, and I found that difficult to read. So it just didn't quite match up to the absolute 5-star feels of The Deal. Next up was my first Scribd use on my Kindle, and I read the graphic novel Chef's Kiss by Jared Melendez. One of the main reasons that I wanted the Kindle Fire, other than the fact that I could get Scribd on it and read ebooks, was also the fact that you can read graphic novels novels on there. Like, I have a Kindle Paperwhite, which just does not work for reading graphic novels. I would usually use my phone if I wanted to read a graphic novel on like Kindle Unlimited, Scribd, whatever, but I hate reading it on such a small screen. So this is one of the main reasons that I wanted to get a Kindle Fire, so that I could make use of those subscriptions properly and get so many graphic novels in throughout the month, get my reading count up. And I ended up giving Chef's Kiss 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one too. We follow Ben Cook, who is a new English graduate, and he's living in a house with 2 other people who are also graduates who have already sort of lined themselves up graduate jobs. They seem to be like progressing, going places. He is going to loads of interviews, but he is getting nowhere. So he decides to just find like ordinary work just to get him through until he can find his dream job. So he applies for this position as a chef at a local restaurant, and he has to pass a series of cooking tests in order to get the position. Also, the person who happens to be training him and watching over him is an absolute hunk. And of course, Ben starts to develop a little crush on him. This graphic novel was beautiful. I loved the illustrations in this. I loved how fun and light it was. Both some good messages popped in there as well. I can heavily relate to being an English graduate with no idea what you're going to do with the rest of your life. So that was definitely interesting for me to read. And the ending was just chef's kiss. I then read another book on Kindle Unlimited, but I did actually end up buying the paper copy because I absolutely adored this book, and that was Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I have been told, I've seen so many recommendations flying around, so many 5-star vibes, but I just didn't quite believe it for myself that I was going to love it as much as everyone else did. Oh, how I was wrong. Without a doubt, 5 stars. 5 stars literally from like the first chapter, and it gave me 5-star feels throughout. I kept worrying that something was going to happen to bump the star rating down, but that never happened. In this one, we follow Naomi and Knox, and Naomi is a young woman who is fleeing after just standing up her fiance at the altar, and she comes to this town where her twin sister has been living. She is estranged from this twin sister, but she hears that this twin sister is in trouble, so she runs to her rescue, also runs away from her whole situation. When she gets there, her sister is gone and has left a young daughter that Naomi did not know about. So Naomi ends up staying in town looking after this daughter and trying to work out what the heck has happened to her sister. In doing this, she meets Knox, who is like the resident bad boy. Very gruff, very grumpy. This is 100% a Grumpy Sunshine, and I have to say one of the best Grumpy Sunshines I have read. They enter into what should be a casual fling. They both know there's no strings attached, this is not going anywhere, but we all know how that one works out. This one was so fun, like the Grumpy Sunshine vibes were on point. I loved the way that these two interact with each other. I laughed, I cried. It does have some really emotional stuff in here as well, so I would maybe look up trigger warnings. But I flew for this book despite the fact that it is a romance that is nearly 500 pages. I went into this thinking there is no way a romance should ever be that long, there's just no need. But I did not feel like this one was too long at all. It never dragged at any point. It was just right. Definitely a new favourite romance. I then listened to the audiobook of Do No Harm by Jack Jordan. This is a thriller. I've said before, I love listening to the audiobooks of thrillers. I just find them so intense. And if I'm like journaling or playing a game while I listen to one of these thrillers, sometimes I get so into it that I literally have to stop what I'm doing and just until we get to some sort of resolution. In this one we follow 3 perspectives, all of which I loved, but particularly I enjoyed Anna, who is a surgeon who is blackmailed to kill someone while in surgery, otherwise her son will be killed. Which immediately, like that starts straight away, you get straight into the drama, and my heart did not stop racing throughout the entire read. I loved how the 3 narrators actually interact with each other throughout, and we get all of their perspectives and all of their different thoughts on these interactions. I'm always a fan of morally grey characters, and this book was full of them. It constantly made you question how you would handle these situations. I mean, it's a very difficult situation to deal with, and it only gets worse throughout the book. So I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I'd stand up to it very well either. It was such a unique storyline that I've never heard done before, and it meant it was such an unpredictable and twisty thriller. And despite the fact that it was such a different, intriguing concept, it never felt too unrealistic. it. Like obviously there are probably parts of this that if you are involved in surgery or any of that part of the medical profession, you would probably point the finger at, but me not knowing any of that, I had a grand time. I'd heard so much hype about this book beforehand and now I completely understand why. I then listened to another thriller on Scribd, and that was The Skylight by Louise Candlish. This is actually a short story, short thriller, and I had such high hopes for it. Unfortunately, I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars in the end. This one really lent itself to the audiobook format, so I would 100% recommend trying that out if you do have Scribd. We're listening to this unlikable, morally grey character as she spies on her neighbour through the skylight in their newly built conservatory. She realises if she looks out of the window, she can see down through their skylight into like their dining area, I believe, and she sees all sorts. The first half I was completely immersed in. It gave me all the creepy voyeuristic vibes I am looking for in a good thriller. However, the second half became very predictable to me. I immediately guessed all the twists that were coming. I kept waiting for another one to be thrown out of the blue. Obviously sometimes with a thriller you think you know where it's going and then the author completely turns it on its head. That did not happen with this one. I did see everything coming. So overall 3 out of 5 stars. Really love the concept, just wish it could have been executed that a little bit better. I then listened to another audiobook on Scribd, which was Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q Sutanto, and I did not have a good time with this book. I had heard so many amazing things about this book. I've been told it was going to be great, it was going to be funny, it was going to be laugh out loud, just a great old time. No. I loved the Chinese Indonesian culture rep in this. I always love to see different cultures represented in books, so it was really interesting to see their whole culture within this. There was some really funny dialogue and the dynamics between this family were brilliant. I loved reading about that. I did laugh out loud at some of those parts, and I loved the idea of sisterhood between the main character and the aunties and the sort of like feminist aspect of that. But it was about the halfway mark I realised this book was just not it. In this, we follow a young woman who accidentally murders her date, and then the rest of the book is about her and her aunties and her mother trying to cover up this murder while also working a wedding, because they do different parts of the wedding. Like one of them's a caterer, one of them's a photographer, one of them does makeup, etc. Like they do like a wedding business. So while working this wedding, they are like trying to cover up this murder and trying to get rid of the body. It sounds fun. It gets utterly ridiculous to the point where for me it just wasn't funny anymore. I was just listening to it thinking, what on earth am I listening to? People constantly making such stupid decisions that just really frustrated me. I could not find it funny because I was just angry. The final 100 pages, I can't even talk about how ludicrous it really gets. Like I was sat there trying to play Stardew Valley while listening to this, and I stopped and literally just looked at the wall like what? So yeah, 2 stars. Would not recommend. Next up, I had another 5-star read, and that was The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. You guys will know that I recently flew through the Bone Season books by Samantha Shannon, so it's only right that I now start The Roots of Chaos, especially because I am seeing Samantha Shannon at her event next week for A Day of Fallen Night. I absolutely adored this book. I did again read it on my Kindle. The ebook is available on Scribd. Scribd is just the best. What I did do though is keep track of where I was in the book with a bookmark. I didn't want to hold it because this thing is a chunker, so reading it on my Kindle was the best way to go, but I did keep putting a bookmark at the bits that I stopped. I also divided this up into 8 days worth of reading, I believe, so it was basically about 100 pages per day. I put little tabs in. I started on a Sunday so that I could then finish the following Sunday, and I did manage to stick to it. That technique definitely works for me and spurs me on. This one is definitely the most high fantasy I have ever read in my life. I didn't think I'd ever get into that sort of fantasy, but let me tell you, I freaking adored this. I enjoyed all the characters, all the different perspectives. I loved seeing how those perspectives weaved together throughout time, how these different perspectives end up meeting each other at later dates despite the fact that they were like across the world from each other. I loved the feminism in here, the amazing strong female characters, absolute badasses, and dragons. Like, need I say more? Dragons. Like, who doesn't love dragons? Yeah, definitely a new favourite. Cannot wait to read the prequel. I'm pretty sure I kept saying sequel in my last video, but I am aware it is a prequel, A Day of Fallen Night. Hopefully I am going to love that one just as much as I love this one. And finally in February I read another ebook. I actually read this one on Libby, which you can also get on the Kindle Fire. Can you tell I love my Kindle Fire? I read Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. Rock Paper Scissors by Alice Feeney is one of my favourite thrillers of all time. I absolutely adore it, so I was really excited to get into this one. I'd heard really good things, so I did hope I would love it. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, which I really enjoyed. It just didn't quite give me the 5-star feels. Rock Paper Scissors was just worlds apart for me. We follow Daisy Darker, obviously, who shows up at her grandmother's house on Halloween. Halloween also happens to be her grandmother's birthday, and her grandmother lives in this house that you go like across like a causeway, I guess, and when you get there, like once the tide comes in, you're locked into like this little bit of land where this house is until the tide goes back out. So of course that happens. They all get together, all the family come together. They're all very distant, who a lot of them don't really talk anymore. They come to this house and then people start dying while they are locked in on this little bit of land. So they're trying to work out who the killer is amongst the group of them and try to survive until the tide goes back out. I feel like I've said in and out the wrong way around, but you totally know what I mean. It is definitely suspenseful. It is definitely intriguing. I did not know who was doing the killing for a very long time. I was very surprised by this. I loved how eerie it was as well, like this dark Halloween night on this isolated bit of land. It kind of gave me like Agatha Christie Knives Out type vibes, like them all being locked in this house, and I always love that vibe to a thriller. This one has quite a big twist towards the end, which I think is why this book seems to be a very love or hate book, because the twist, without giving too much away, it's like a Marmite twist, I would say. Like, I really loved it. I thought it was really well done, but I think for some people, the way it comes out of the blue, they probably like, that is not what I wanted from this book. That's not what I expected. That's all I'm gonna say, because I don't think that gives any spoilers and I don't want to give any spoilers, but I really enjoyed it personally. Just maybe if you are gonna read it, go in with the state of mind that you may hate it, but you also may love it. So that is it for all of the books that I read in February. Please do let me know if you have read any of these, if you've enjoyed them, if you agree or disagree with any of my comments. Let me know what your favourite book was that you read in February. I would love to know. I'm always looking for the recommendations. Remember again to check the link in the description for Magic Mind and these little shots of matcha goodness. But if you did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe for more bookish content from me. Comment down below with any of your thoughts and feelings. I do reply to every single comment. I love you all, and I will see you in my next one.